Live.
Farts. Old farts. Two old farts. Steve and Dave. Sometimes you find a diamond in the rough. Not this time, though. This is just rough. Two old farts. There is no better waste of time. Two guys. Two old guys. A lot of BS and more drivel than you can shake a stick at. Steve and Dave. God help us.
There's that God guy again. Yeah, we'll talk. That's a whole nother show. So, David,
I'm still convinced he says dog help us.
Dog help us. So.
Yeah, maybe because I'm dyslexic, I can't hear very well. I'm not sure.
That's true. But the good thing is our production company is called God Help Us Productions. So
yeah. So we need all the help we can get, Steve.
Well, I've seen our shows. You're correct. So today you got actually a special guest that you found that you, I think, stalked, and there's a restraining order. And I think part of the restraining order was that he had to come on the show and then you can't bother him anymore. But
that's right. Then I have to release him. I have to release his soul, I think, after he's been on this show.
Sure.
It's Warren Parker Mills.
Okay.
All I know is that he himself is a podcaster, so he's probably going to be a lot more professional than we are. He's in the Fashion Metaverse Group, which I find interesting. Because we've toyed a little bit ourselves with the metaverse, and we're always looking at this fashion side of it. So thought he might be a really interesting guy to have on and educate us all. So
very cool.
Yeah.
So we should bring him in.
Yeah, I think so.
Hey, Warren, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys.
Welcome,
Warren. Very nice to be here. Lovely. Now we've got three farts in the room, right? Three old farts.
Well, it depends what age you consider being old. So anything over 150. David's like 170, 180. So he's getting there.
Yeah.
So
I'm a time traveler. We've discussed this yesterday. I'm actually a time traveler. So there you go.
Cool. Yeah. Very good. It's great to be here. Lovely. Absolutely cool.
Well, thank you for joining us. So before I have to start, so I want to talk about your podcast, but before we do that, beforeStores, like I tell us about. I read what it's all about for the people that aren't going to be familiar with it. Tell us what it's about, and I guess how it ties to the metaverse and AR and VR and everything that's coming out. Because when I read about you, everything you're doing is fascinating. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, no, that's really sweet. It's kind of been a working project for the last, 15, 20 years, I suppose. All the sun's come out.
Annie, the sun's coming out.
It's been a labor of love, I'll be honest with you. I mean, my background, I've been in the fashion industry for 35 years and worked with lots of different brands and kind of grown my grey hair, or executive blonde hairs, as I like to call them, through the toil of retail and wholesale and everything in between, really. And for many, many years, I kind of realized that there was a big problem with the industry, and there is a big problem with the industry. I mean, basically, the fashion industry is the second most polluting industry in the world, next to oil, and up to between 8 and 10% of carbon emissions going into the atmosphere are a direct or indirect result of clothes and fashion and accessories and such forth. And then, so it's not just about the manufacturing side and the supply chain, it's also what happens to the products at the end of life as well. And that's always been a big, big problem for me to kind of digest with. And so I kind of came up with this idea probably around 2010, I suppose, where I just thought maybe we could just do things differently. Maybe we could look at production, and as opposed to producing product and then having to sell it, we can kind of anticipate the customers and the people that are going to buy that product before it's actually made, which actually from a sustainability point of view is really quite neat. And that's always been a bit of a problem because the industry is very set in its ways, and a lot of people have done things the way they've always done them and don't want change. And what has happened over the last couple of years since Web3 and Metaverse and digital fashion has started to pick up momentum, it's allowed people now to think more about creating products in a digital format and then creating them in a physical format. And I'm really excited because I'm a couple of months away now from launching beforeStores properly into the world. As I say, a lot of work's gone into it. And before it was a Web 2 product, and we're obviously talking a lot about Web 3 and the metaverse. Well, actually, beforeStores will be a Web 2.5 product. So I think that's also really important, because a lot of people, maybe people listening to this show that don't know what Web 3 is. A lot of the guys, a lot of the girls and brands and retailers that I deal with on a daily basis through my consultancy business are also a bit anxious and a bit undecided in the way that the industry is going to move forward. As was I with the first iteration of the internet kind of 25, 30 years ago. So I understand their kind of hesitancy, but my job with beforeStores, and certainly what I do on a daily basis, is to put my arm around people and bring real-time businesses into Web3. So that in a nutshell is what beforeStores is.
Very cool. So if you've been in the fashion industry for about 35 years, we dabbled in it many years ago with Carl's Fauci. And I got to play in the industry for a few years, and you're correct on the pollution and whatnot and the waste and so forth. Mm-hmm. So with your digital products and whatnot, so am I talking about then luxury goods like Louis Vuitton or something like that? Or am I talking more of, Polo, or is it just everybody now can use digital products because you can go, oh, I like the way that looks on my, if you will, avatar, and then have it sent, or are you using it just for design? How are you're looking for the metaverse, if you will, to be used going forward?
Okay, so there's two sides of the coin here. So one is production and supply chain. Right. So I think when we talk about digital fashion with the supply chain kind of umbrella over it, it is about producing samples very efficiently at a very low cost, very quickly. As opposed to the long process of sending factories, coming back with specs, sending products, coming back with amendments and going backwards and forwards all over the world. And again, that's a huge process, which can take, a decent brand could be up to kind of 6 to 8 weeks doing that. And actually with digital, you can reduce that down to maybe 24 hours, 27 hours, depending obviously size on the collection. So there's the whole benefits of using digital products and working in a using technology to make the whole process much more streamlined. And then there's the retail side of things. And at the moment, we've had lots of brands like the ones that you've just mentioned there, Stephen, the Louis Vuittons, Prada, Gucci, obviously leading the way with regards to Web3. Tiffany did a big launch with CryptoPunks. Bored Apes have kind of associated themselves with Adidas and many other brands. So there's a lot happening in the sector. And a lot of the big brands who have got big budgets and want to be seen to be kind of pushing the envelope a little bit are dabbling in Web3 and creating NFTs. The big plus going forward, and I think it's starting to move now, is the utility behind those digital assets. So it's not just a question of a picture of an ape, it's what you get with that ape as in the way of utility. So I think that's great. And that's not where beforeStores is, because I've built my career really working with mid-range brands that understand good product, great community, have got really professional and profitable businesses. It's those guys that I'm trying to work with, because those are the guys that need the most help. They don't have masses of budgets. They can't deploy an entire team to create a Web3 strategy. It tends to be smaller businesses, but as I say, with good distribution at the moment, that want to take the step and a tentative step into this space. So yeah, that's my sweet spot. That's where I sit.
Oh, very cool. So Warren, go ahead, David.
Yeah, Warren, would I see that then that the original conceptual object, garment, whatever, would be virtual, and then what would happen store wise? Then it would be all like print on demand, so that people would.
Yeah. So
is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah. There are people doing that. There are people just working in completely digital assets, and I've got huge respect for the likes of Fabricant and DressX, and there's numerous people popping up all the time that are building their business in digital, and that's fantastic. beforeStores is going to be a blend of digital and physical, but not physical in the way that we know it at the moment. So in effect, if you bought this sweater as an NFT from the store, you would own the NFT of that product. You could then deploy that in Decentraland, in Roblox, in the Sandbox, whichever digital environment you want. And, as we get more interoperability through the likes of Ready Player Me and such forth, you'll be able to wear those clothings or apparel or footwear or accessories in lots and lots of different places as the technology develops. So that's one side. But once you've bought this sweater, you own that asset, you own the NFT, it's on the blockchain, it's ledgered, you cannot be denied. Then what will happen is the brands will also, like you've just said there, make the product and then deliver the product into the consumer. And the whole idea with beforeStores is the fact they will be able to see product before it's released, before it's even been made, sometimes up to 6 to 9 months before it hits the stores. And the idea for the brands is to produce that product to their audience that have invested in that product and that whole process before it goes into the stores, which again says what it does on the tin, really. So there's lots of mechanics in there, which, you know, as I say, this is an idea which has been fermenting over the last seriously over the last 5 or 6 years, but a lot longer. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I'll be honest with you. I didn't really know. I knew there was problems. I knew there were sticking points for the industry, but it's only with the revelation of technology that I've looked at things and thought, hold on a minute, that could do that job and that could do that job. And actually we've got a problem with this part of the industry. And it might not just be around supply chain. It might be about distribution, or it might be salespeople that have their business has just dissolved since the COVID, you know, and people have found themselves in this dead area of not being able to recoup what they had previously. So there's lots of elements of beforeStores which will hopefully help brands. It will also help people within the industry to get back into the industry and do what they do best. But more importantly, it's about educating the consumers to redefine the way that we look at product and the way we consume product with more of a conscious feel behind it.
So and also and help the environment, as you say, with the supply chain.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and when,
when
it's connected to the blockchain, you know, it's very clear to see, and this is part of the problem, guys. So, you know, when you wear the t-shirt or the shirt that you guys have got on now, you don't know where that product's really from. You'll know the retailer it's from, but you don't know the provenance of that product. And actually, when you get rid of that product, you know, you might be thread burn, it might, you know, buttons might have fell off. Where does that product go? And it's not a question of me being a whistleblower and saying, hey guys, do you know this? But there's some really ugly secrets in the industry, and there's some ugly ways that people behave as brands. And, you know, I want to try and eradicate those. I want to try and do my bit and give my bit back to the industry, because for many, many years, I potentially have been part of the problem. You know, a lot of people that I work with have been definitely directly part of the problem.
So now,
so it's a sort of a love child then between an NFT and POD then.
I've never heard a child before, but yeah, I like that. You know, I think it's a new way of consuming. I mean, I think that's the key here. And
because the POD people are kind of stuck in that Web 2 environment. We're making virtual clothing. I did that myself for a couple of years, so I know a little bit about that side of the industry. And people like that, but you know, obviously the only downside is the price points are always really high. But if you've got a you know, somebody who's already making physical product and going to be making a lot of it, then you know they're stepping into that via the NFT like that, then the POD, and then the mass production of it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the thing is, I'm very careful to curate the brands that I'm working with. A lot of people I know anyway, so I know their infrastructure, you know, and I don't want to create a product that lets itself down, just like a normal e-commerce retailer lets themselves in that last mile. You know, it has to be frictionless. It has to be certified. It has to be clear. It has to be drilled at every point, because as consumers, we've got used to this. I'm not going to use the word, well, I will use the word fast fashion, but I want to make it efficient fashion. You know, I don't want it to be produced, you know, order it today before 12 o'clock and you get it before 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. That's not how we should be producing product. We should be purchasing product with more consciousness about what we're buying and why we're buying it. And I think as we go forward with consumers, I think a lot of the big brands that have kind of dominated the space, I'm not just talking from the retail space, I'm talking from a tech space, they've kind of said, we've created this product, this is what you're going to buy. And they've used all the tricks in the trade to condition us into buying things. And I think as we start going forward and this new wave of consumers start coming through who understand and appreciate why they're buying it. And it's not just the product, it's the community, it's the utility, it's the feeling of giving something back, it's the supporting, it's just a different mentality. And that tends to be a younger generation. And just to echo that, John Donahue from Nike has started to actively target the alpha generation, because he knows that that age bracket from 6 to 12 will be the consumers in 10, 15 years time. So brands are thinking very, very carefully and strategically about how they're going to develop their business moving forward. It's really interesting. And honestly, I'm not just saying it, you know, I'm 55 years old and I've never been so excited. And when I started in the industry all those years ago, I just had this gusto to go out and do what I got to do. And I feel exactly the same now. It's a little bit more tiring and the days seem longer, but it's a great environment. Every day I'm speaking to amazing people doing just incredible things, absolutely incredible.
So if I'm a middle market company, what I understand I would use you, but if someone's a startup and they have an idea for like, I want to do something with a motorcycle clothing line and they're just starting out, would they use you then? Because then it would keep their costs down, or is that too soon? Or it really would be someone that's been out there for, just say, 1 to 5 years, that has X amount in turnover, and they're the perfect for you to work with? Who's your, like, I understand what you kind of said is ideal, but what's your real, like, what's the sweet spot where you really can go, I can make you now the next level of X?
Okay, that's a really good question, because with my consultancy side of business,
right?
You know what? When I listen to a podcast and I hear that, I think, do they actually mean that's a really good question? But it is a really good question, because at the end of the day, I
only get one a day. That was it. I can leave now. It'll be you and David. Both of you have a wonderful day. So
I think for me, you know, I've been really fortunate, and whether it's luck, judgment, or whatever it is, but I've had a really good eye for product, right? So I've always looked at things and thought that's really commercial. And you know, beforeStores, I hope, will be a platform, because people won't have seen the product before. You know, I want to champion new brands. I want to champion new ways of doing things, because, you know, there's some amazing, so you don't have to have a sustained business that has P&L and distribution in all different countries. What you have to have is a really good understanding of the customer experience, what the product is about, and what the market needs at the right time. Timing is such an important part of the fashion industry, getting that timing right. So to answer your question, hopefully it will be a mix of established brands and new brands, because the new brands will be the ones that will be developing. And also, you know, I want to help them. I want to bring new talent in. And as I say, I do want to help them understand the journey of going into Web3, which is this next iteration via Web 2.5. So I have to break it down really, really simply. And a lot of the big brands, I dare I say, I've done some quite big talks for a lot of big corporate organizations. And when you've got 300 people in the room and you're talking about the future of retail, or you're talking about how sustainability will look in the metaverse, and then you ask the audience, what's your Web3 strategy? And no one puts their hands up. That's worrying. That's really worrying to me. And that's partly due to the fact that, you know, the stakeholders involved, there's investors involved, they can't turn the ship as quickly as they need to, whereas smaller, more dynamic, more agile brands can make things happen quickly. And that's what the fashion industry should be about. It should be about speed, momentum, execution, and quality.
Right.
Are you getting any push? Are you getting any pushback then from your existing clients? Because basically what you're saying is, I have this possibility of a whole new way of designing product, which will, you know, does that not by default make their designers redundant?
What are you talking about? Their actual designers?
Yeah.
I think
because you're sort of you there's a two-way street, isn't there? There's the NFT, there's them making it into a physical product. The two are linked, and whoever's doing one has to have an understanding of the other, and vice versa.
There's no reason why, and no reason, David, why the industry can't look after digital artists, digital creators, and real world creators. So, I did an interview with a guy who's from the supply chain. So his background is manufacturing, and actually he's now embodied tech within his concept, and he's building a product which basically looks at all those elements from the traditional industry side of things and interweave technology to make that more efficient. So I think this is where it's quite an interesting one, because I think those people that have real skill in making real clothes, who get their head around this technology, will set themselves up really well for the future. And that's not to say that people without any experience won't, but there will definitely be an advantage with understanding what the commercial side of things are and how products should look. Because digital, and again, I'm not a great fan of that word, but this transition from digital and physical, especially when you look at what's happening with regards to Apple Pro and this mixing, this blending of reality. And, I'm very much a believer of the high street. I think the high street will come back, but it will come back in a very different way. Maybe that's a different podcast, but it's evolving with the technology as opposed to replacing one element of the industry with technology. It's using what we've got to be better and more efficient at what we do.
But it also makes the cost. Go ahead, David.
I was going to say, I can see the high street in 5-10 years time where unfortunately, when you walk past the shop, it will already be communicating with you on your smart device. But you'll be able, it will call you in, and and you'll be able to virtually try the clothing on in the store. And then, of course, the key will be at what stage and how quickly will that physical item be available to you? Will it be there by the time you get home? I wouldn't have thought so. Would it be there the next day? So there's going to be a lot of pressure. Even if it's POD, you still have a lot of pressure to produce it. And of course, the consumer, they order 5 pairs of trousers because they know one's going to fit them and they're going to like one product, and the rest they ship back. So the elephant in the room for all these big online retailers, as opposed to the people who have a physical shop, are all the returns. I mean, that's a huge cost.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can see the advantage of that. But is the consumer, are they ready? Are they can they get their head around it? That I've just put. I mean, I used to work many years ago when I was at technical school. I worked for a tailor, and they made bespoke suits. So it was quite obvious that when you bought your suit, you didn't walk away with it. That was obvious because it's bespoke. But there's a whole generation of people. I mean, but they kind of died a death because in those days, the Burtons and the John Colliers and these sort of people were taking over the high street and the C&As because it was off the peg. Yeah. People say, "Oh, I want a jacket." Go in, buy a jacket, put it on, walk away. Are we too far away from that? Is this generation? Do they have the time? Do they want to make the time for your product?
Yeah, I think part of the problem is, and again, beforeStores is not for everybody. It's not for everybody. I think you have to acknowledge the fact that whatever you produce is for the people that you want to appeal to. And to use your analogy of having something now and physically having it now, if you go to the travel agent, you book a holiday to Florida for next year, you don't go on that holiday within the hour. You're looking forward to that holiday. And with beforeStores, you will look forward. You'll have the NFT, which you can brag about.
Okay. So that's your social currency you already have.
Exactly. Yeah. So you'll have the NFT of that product. So you will be able to go into environments and still wear it and brag about it and go down the pub and show people it in your digital wallet and such forth, if that's what you want to do. But then what will happen? There will be this period where you'll start communicating with the brand, and the brand will communicate you, and it will educate you on how that product's being produced. So if you've got a pair of sneakers or footwear, they could be in a factory in Portugal, you'll get information saying, "Hey guys, I'm in Portugal. This is your shoes. Thank you for your support. This is really." So imagine Kickstarter, but everything gets produced. That's how it's going to work. So there's so many different mechanics. I think we've got to change the way that we consume. I think that's the big thing. And as I say, I'm not going to appeal to everybody. It's a big market. It's 267 trillion from the last count market. So it's a huge market. But what I will say is, you know, when you hear reports from McKinsey talking about the metaverse and Web3, you know, equating to $5 trillion by 2030 and 2.6 is going to be in e-com alone, there's a huge amount of potential there for lots of different people to cut it different ways. And I think for me, as I say, I have to be laser focused on who I'm appealing to, who my audience is, but more importantly, the brands that I want to bring on that journey as well. That I could have thousands of brands. There's one website that I know has got 17,500 brands, and it's a marketplace, but it is exactly that. It's a marketplace. This is not like that. If you come onto beforeStores, you're not allowed onto beforeStores unless you have a token. So it's not like a Farfetch, with the greatest respect, or an ASOS where you can just go on, order what you want and have it shipped. If you're coming on with the right mindset. And the right mindset means that you want to educate yourself and you want to be part of that brand storytelling. That's what we miss. That's what we're missing in society, storytelling. And that's why we do podcasts, right?
Very true.
Yeah.
But here's something that's also interesting. If I'm a young designer, instead of, if you will, having to like beg and plead to go work at a certain house, even as an assistant to the assistant to the assistant, so I can bring you a pair of shears. And for people to know what shears are, you can go look that up on the internet. It's an old thing that like we used to use in the fashion industry. But if you do that, now if I'm at a fashion school and I have really good designs and I can't get on one of the television shows and I can't do this and I can't get with a prominent house, in theory, I could contact you or go to yours and say, I want to do this. And if I have whatever it costs to do it, I could do it. I could become my own house, my own designer and whatnot, and grow myself into whatever type of brand, to your point, to a social conscious brand that's worried about the environment and worried about this and worried about that. So for a lot of young designers in fashion school, this is like, should be huge for them.
I hope so. I really do hope so. And also, I think it's really important that at the moment we don't have a resource. You know, there's loads of there's WGSM where you can look at trend. There's so much on LinkedIn, you know, if you're connected to the right people within the industry. And there's lots of different levels. So you've kind of got that whole New York Fashion Week and Milan Fashion Week, and that's great, but that's not my level. I'm interested in it because I understand that trends and everything else filters down and diffuses to some extent. But there's so many different facets. But you're exactly right. Why can't somebody with talent become a content creator? That's the way. That's where we've turned since the later stages of Web 2 with regards to social media and influencers and such forth. So there's also mechanics within beforeStores where I get those people who love fashion, who really want to delve into the brands and connect with the brands. We will be utilizing that knowledge, that experience, that need to help the brands develop products moving forward in focus groups. So, you know, my podcast is going to be on there. There's going to be a secondary marketplace on there further down the roadmap. You know, there's going to be tutorials about how to create in Clo 3D or Browseware, or how to market yourself as a new brand. There's lots of things that I want to try and do, which is, as I say, I want this overarching portal that allows people, regardless to whether or not you're a fashion designer, you might just want to understand more about the industry, or you might be an investor, or you might be a trend forecaster, or you might be a stylist, or you just want to see stuff before everyone else sees it. You know, there's so many opportunities. And, you know, as I say, I've reached a time in my life where, you know, I don't need to do beforeStores, but I need to do it. And that's really weird because I have this conflict of interest of, you know, why am I doing what I'm doing? I can earn good money as a consultant and I can do what I do, but you know, this needs to be done. It needs to be done. I need to be able to show my kids who are 18, 19 and 20 that they need to consume differently. And if even just those three get it and start using it, then my job is done.
Well, I think based on what you just said about Nike a little while ago, I think Nike gets it.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see, even though that's not your target, it's more of the medium to small or the startups, if you will. It'll be interesting to see if some of the larger brands say, you know what, this is really cool.
Yeah.
We should be part of it. Or now for the people in America, Adidas is Adidas. Got to help them out. So Adidas, and I know who, and I say Adidas. So with Adidas, they seem to have been ahead of the curve for like many, many years. So it'd be interesting if an Adidas or someone comes and says, we want to be on the site, because for them with an NFT, it's interesting. Like when we were doing it in the art world, it was like polydigital, right? You got an NFT of the art and you got the actual physical art. So really in the fashion world, what you're doing is whether it's sneakers or whether it's a scarf or whether it's a jacket or a t-shirt, whatever it may be, to David's point before, the street cred is I own this NFT of what I'm wearing. Yeah. And there's only 10,000 of us or 1,000, however we're going to do the limited run that own this, I guess. And then the flip side of it is in 6 months, not only do I own it, but I own it. Yeah. So, you know, if it becomes like a Hermes bag that you buy today and, you know, 6 months later it appreciates by 300%, then, you know, who's smarter than you type of thing. Yeah. But I think that's where we're headed with the metaverse and everything. But I don't agree it's by 2030. I think NFTs and crypto and whatever, especially a site like yours, has got to, and I'm sure you will be able to take credit cards and crypto and blah, blah. And I think the crypto side right now has got to get worked out on a global level, right? Because central banks are like, no. The U.S. government's like, we have issues. So I think it's going to be one of these things where it'll all gel probably by the mid-30, like 2035. Then I see, yes, it's like Goldman said and McKinsey. Then you're looking at a $6, $7, $10 trillion market. I think by 2030, it's maybe $1 trillion or $2 trillion, because there's still going to be, we have to figure so much out. Even though technology is going very quickly, I think once quantum computing or quantum relativity computing, I guess, gets here, then I say, then the metaverse takes off, because then it's like, if you will, Star Trek. I push a button, I'm sitting in my office, but I'm now in wherever I want to be. Could be in a fashion show. And I think that will also help. And I think that's kind of where we're headed, in my opinion.
I think, you know, I agree to some extent, but I think knowing how quickly things are evolving, and, you know, when you look at AI and you look at generative AI and what that's doing at the moment, and the way that tech is just, the velocity behind it is insane at the moment. I mean, seriously, some of the things that I'm talking to people about, that I'm thinking, this is just goddamn sci-fi, you know, nothing less of it. But, you know, that interoperability has been a challenge for the last couple of years. And already, you know, I can name a couple of sites whereby it's dead easy. You go on, if you've got a digital wallet, you connect your wallet. If you haven't, you use Magic Link, boom, you're connected. You can have NFTs. You can mint NFTs for nothing. You can collect NFTs. And actually, the word NFT, you know, I kind of use tokens more so now, because I think a digital token or a digital wearable or a digital collective is probably a little bit more in line with the kind of terminology we need to be using and make it a little bit more accessible. But it's all about the utility. If you buy a token, or you're gifted a token, or somebody airdrops you a token, it's not that physical thing, or it's not that digital thing, should I say. It's everything else that goes with it, you know, and that's really where brands can start working. And then you bring in augmented reality and all the other wonderful tricks that people have got up their sleeves that can engage on a completely different level. And as I say, it's really exciting. And I think costs will come down as well. You know, when I started looking at some of these things, you know, I was talking to blockchain companies and I was like, this is a startup, right? This is bootstrapped by me. I'm not going to invest, because I need to figure it out. And actually, during that time, that's why the gestation period has been so long. Tech has now made it so much more accessible and so much more cost effective. But more importantly, it's lowered the barriers to entry for the end consumers, which is exactly what I want. So,
well, it also lowers. Good.
I was going to say, we know ourselves had a bit of experience that the whole blockchain technology is one of the reasons why the NFTs are not as big as they should be. Just the time taken to mint, this whole thing about, it has to be in crypto, where most of the world's using fiat. You know, the crypto. So a lot of the blockchain companies that you know originally brought out the NFTs. So no, it all has to be done in crypto. Well, you know, you might just as well talk margin to people, because they don't know what that is. They just want to play with a credit card. And we had all those barriers. We looked at ticketing. And we had lots of interesting clients potentially for ticketing, but you couldn't mint the tickets quick enough. They would be sold at such a volume, And I think that's one of the issues that you're probably going to come up against, that your success will probably be limited by the physical hardware side of it, that the blockchain physically cannot mint at this current processing period of technology, can't print enough tokens at enough speed to satisfy what could be a tsunami of clients.
I don't know, because I mean I bought from Dot Swoosh a few weeks ago, so I bought some closed boxes, right? And there was 78,000 of these boxes produced, and it was very seamless, very, very seamless. Like, cost me 20...
but they print off chain. That's the thing. So
yeah, absolutely.
So that's one of the other issues as well, because there's this huge risk that both you and, well, they don't, because they'd love to walk away from the risk, as the ticketing boys we know like to walk away from the risk. We've got all their money. We've offered them the profit of the potential product, but because of the way it's physically not possible to continuously mint in the way that we consume, as if we were consuming hamburgers, that all of a sudden, there's this like, oh, okay, well, I've sort of got the NFT, but I haven't.
Yeah, I mean, there are chains like Polygon. Polygon Matic, obviously, has made huge leaps. And again, I don't want to get too caught up in the whole crypto thing, because it's one, it's not my expertise, and secondly, I don't want to say anything that isn't factually correct. But from what I understand, and I would like to share, and anybody listening to this, and you guys check it out. There's a great platform called uncut.network. That's the URL. Shout out to Carlos Diaz. And he's producing a network which is Web3 based, and you go on there and you can create your podcast or your artwork or whatever you want to do, and you mint it, and it's dead easy. It's free to mint, it's free to collect. There's a growing community there, and I think it's those types of initiatives where the brands are looking at the low-hanging fruit and making it really accessible for people to get in. And I think whether or not you get caught up on the metadata and what the actual token is, it's more about what you've got and the way the connectivity links to everyone else. That's really where the benefit is. It's not a question of having another token in your wallet. It's who you're connected with and how you're engaging with them. I think that's really, really important.
I agree. And I think also with AI coming out, the way we use AI constantly for our shows. I mean, David makes AI movies for our channel. Yeah. So people like that because you can use AI, right? We type a script, we give it to the Mr. AI, who's our real writer and not a SAG member, so he's not on strike, and writes a whole script with the concept, and David gives it to another AI that then produces, directs it, puts the language all in, and boom, we have a mini series. So I think with that, with quantum relativity coming and everything else, I think this is going to explode. I think it'll explode, but I think it'll explode more as the technology can handle it. And I think as people are more concerned about sustainability, it's like closing the barn door after the cow is out, but it's good that they are. Because if we can clean up the industry,
if you're worried about sustainability, you should not be encouraging AI or blockchain. Because
but I need HAL 2001. All right, so I'm encouraging it all. I know. So until I get HAL 2001, then you can stop. And on that note, we're good.
I'm not poo-pooing what you're doing. I'm sitting here thinking, oh wow, my head's spinning from the opportunities. I'm fascinated.
David's going to be minting two old farts making noises now on the free website you just gave out, the Uncut. David will be there in about 2 weeks, and he'll be like, listen, if you want two old farts, this, two old farts, that, two old. So David will be minting stuff for two old farts now. They are, since it's free, he'll be having a field day there. I'm not even worried about it. There'll be a whole show on that.
It's one step up from the POD I was doing. So so don't poo-poo it at all. I think it's absolute, and I can see it. I can see it's happening. And I think what's most refreshing about your whole story is you said, like, it's not going to be for everyone.
Yeah, right.
But you know yourself that the industry is so big that if you just got the crumbs from Adidas's table or from Nike's table or from Gucci's table, you'd still be a very rich man. So
and also I don't want to be I'm very conscious about kind of knowing my abilities, and I'm good in the real world. I'm good in IRL. I am really good in IRL. And I've kind of built a career on that, really, and my network, and being hopefully trusted and respected, and a hard worker, and I think that sets me up in good stead for whatever I do. But with regards to technology, I'm very much a questioner. It's very much a question of me of I don't need to be a trailblazer. I don't want to be a trailblazer. And ironically, I remember I used to work with a guy in the UK called Peter Worth, and he used to produce shirts. And I remember saying to Peter once, Peter, why is your business so successful? And he says, do you know what, Warren? He said, I pride myself at being first at being second. And actually, that was something that always resonated with me, because I just thought, do you know what? Let everyone else kind of work it out. And not that I'll come up and take their ideas, but I'll do it my way. But I'll do it in a way which is a calculated, proven way of doing things. And I think that's a good lesson, I think, for everybody, especially entrepreneurs, to kind of, don't be too gung-ho, be conscious of and cautious, but also have the momentum to push it forward. Because if you're not, then you're not breaking any new ground. So it's a difficult thing. I'm sure you've had loads of guests on your show previously that have kind of all different ways of approaching what we do. But I've still got to keep the lights on, right? I've still got to keep the money coming through. So I can have all the ideas in the world and all the enthusiasm in the world, but if mortgages aren't paid and there's no fuel in the car, it's a tricky thing to do, So
Banks get a little funny when you don't pay bills.
Yeah.
I think this is a wonderful concept, and I hope we stay in touch with you, because as you launch, I would love to do a show on the launch and everything. I think it would be very cool for the people that follow this, or the people that follow us, to see this progress, and see where it goes and how it goes and the brands that you get. I think that would be totally awesome. I think that'd be very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, have your kids? Do your kids think that you're insane? Then your wife tolerates you, and the kids think you're insane.
Well, I don't know about insane. I mean, have you met my kids? No, the old block comes to mind. No, I think I talk to them a lot about different things, and they're very they're very understanding, and they do appreciate that. I see this as almost like an amendment, shall we say, back to, and I'm involved in lots of other projects as well, and some of them are for profit, and there's one product in particular which is basically looking at the next generation of workforce, and actually people that are building Web3 and the metaverse are gamers. This space is being built by gamers, and actually there's a huge level. And one of the guys who's a founder of this new project that we're working from is autistic. And he said, look, first time I ever met him, he said, look, I'm autistic, but I'm really good at what I do. And over time we've built an amazing friendship, and there's a few of us involved now, and we're going to create this community called the LOIT, and that stands for the League of Extraordinary Talents, because a lot of people with autism or ADHD or dyspraxia or dyslexia, or they've got super concentration, super ability to do jobs really well, but the challenge they have is going into the workplace, going into companies, going for a job interview, putting a CV together. And we're going to be using AI to kind of collate and create their CVs, and it's going to look like a comic book, and this comic book will have all their superheroes. So it'll have their dog or their sister or their grandma or whoever. And I think there's so many things that I'm involved like that. And when I talk to my kids about it, I'd like to think that as much as they listen to me keep going on and kind of banging the drum, there's a little twinkle of this, anything is possible, just go out and do it, just get it done. If that really does fill me with hope. One of the reasons I started podcasting is because I love the idea of, when I'm dead and gone, my great grandchildren's sister, they'll be able to listen to me. They'll be able to go into the clouds and they'll be able to listen to me talking. And I think it's a sense of immortality, and it's a sense of
digital concrete.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really wonderful thing.
David and I are just doing it for the chicks. That's it. That's why, because
Yeah.
we're such big celebrities. We're just
How's
the
that
chicks and the
going?
drugs. That's it. That's it. You know.
Is it going well?
The sex
Not-
and
not-
drugs and
not-
sausage rolls, as they say.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. No, no. Our wives have told us that's not happening. But we're like, hey, you know, it was worth a shot when we started. So, but we're good. No, but you're right.
Hey, and talking, you know, from my point of view, because I'm on the spectrum as well. Deep respect.
Yes.
Yeah.
We most of the people that are on our different shows are on the spectrum somewhere, which is very interesting. That we all found each other.
Stephen and I, we all found each other.
Yes,
So, yeah.
but like, we have hosts
actually.
that host other shows, and they're all on the spectrum. And when we talk about it, we all kind of chuckle because we understand why we all get along.
Yeah, I mean, you know, tech is full of amazingly talented, well-focused people that can execute.
Yeah.
But you know, whether that's singers, musicians, poets, graffiti artists, whatever, and it's going to be creative and technical. So, you know, for instance, my partner's son, you know, he's autistic, and you know, there's a big story that we always tell. You know, he went for this job, and you know, one of the first questions was, "So why are you here?" And you know, his answer came out as honestly as he possibly could, and says, "Because my mum sent me." You know, the interview didn't on, you know,
but that's the right answer. That's the
right
answer.
true. That's the answer.
Anyone to lie, but I think there is there's a level of understanding. You know, we live in such a competitive world, and actually.
But I think, Warren, if people ask him that question, if they can't understand his answer, they don't deserve to employ him.
Very true.
I agree.
Absolutely true.
They don't deserve to employ him because, you know, Well, that's all. Come back and we'll do a show on people on the spectrum.
Show on the lower. Yeah, absolutely.
We will. We're not kidding. We would love to do a show on that. Are you kidding?
Yes.
We had a girl on social intercourse, and she's on the spectrum. She's an entrepreneur, works in tech, and she was saying that her biggest problems are, and she's also hard of hearing, and she was going through all the issues she had, but like when she does her job in tech, because she is on the spectrum, she's so focused at it, it's perfect. Yeah. And then we always do shows like this, so we love it. So, but
that'd be a really good one. I'll bring the rest of the team on. You know,
that'd be awesome.
Oh yeah, we'd love that.
Well, David's about to ruin our fun because that's what he does. Because he's older than all of us. I mean, I'm talking old. I mean, like he remembers Moses. You know what I'm saying? So, that's right.
I like the first couple of chapters, then it got a bit boring after that.
Yeah, right. That's a whole nother show. Anyway, Warren, thank you so much. And before we go, tell everybody the name of your podcast. And I'm assuming you're on every podcast platform so people can get you everywhere.
Yeah, that's very kind. It's called Behind the Brands. So you can get that on all the usual Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon, blah, 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 blah. And then I've got a new one that I'm launching called the Fashion Metaverse Club, which cool. That will be all around trying to break down the jargon around all the stuff that we've been talking about for people coming into the industry or just have a relative interest and want to develop their skill set. I've recorded loads of interviews with some really amazing, I mean, like top of the game people in the digital fashion industry. So that's going to be amazing. And that will also be out in the world, but there will be special content that you can get with an NFT or a token.
Nice.
That's it.
There you go.
Very cool.
Yeah, that will be really cool. I'm really looking forward to that. That will be a nice launch. And then obviously beforeStores will be up and running as soon as I can figure it all out and
well, if you need, and when you launch your fashion podcast on the inaugural day, let us know. We will promote it with all our fans as well.
I appreciate that. Well, listen, it's been lovely talking to you guys. Thanks very much.
Yeah,
thank you.
Stay with us after the credits because
David has housekeeping he likes to do. He is on the spectrum. You know how this goes. So, thank you for. Don't forget to subscribe and like.
No worries. Take care, guys. Cheers.
Take care. Cheers.
Well, sadly, this is the end of today's show. A really big thank you to everyone who contributed today to the show. And of course, thank you to my co-host, Stephen Oldfart. I'm David Oldfart. Don't forget, subscribe to the show and get all the latest updates from two old farts making noises.